Everybody, this is the digital asset investor. I am sorry that I did not make a video yesterday, but yesterday was a day that just got away from me. I had so much to do, and over the course of the last, 48 hours, I've seen several interesting pieces that kind of jumped. I guess I'm going to kind of tie them together because I believe they have an overall theme for cryptos and XRP, and I wanted to kind of tie these together and give you some of my thoughts on where things are going and where things have been and that type of thing. This video popped up, I believe I saw this morning, and I do not know if this is a speech that this guy did a few weeks back or if somebody just posted it, but I'm not really sure. But if it's from a few weeks back, it's a portion of this guy William Hinman's. He works for the SEC, but it's a portion of his speech that I didn't see before, and I try not to play videos for you guys. I try to do this so that you don't have to watch the whole video. I go through these videos and I get the overall theme or the main points, and I want to go over. But then if you want to go back and watch them, I encourage you to, because you might pick up something that I did not. But anyway, this is SEC William Hinman, I believe, and he was issuing remarks on cryptocurrencies. Well, the theme of what I heard in this video is, and he actually posed the question, is can a digital asset come out as a security and then over time become something other than a security? And I do not think for a second that those words are that he's not using that approach. And like he said, what he says is not a final say by the SEC, but you can see the theme that's coming together. The SEC is not going to stop a juggernaut like XRP. And I'll make the point I wanted to show you that he had kind of used this theme because it goes right in line with what you're seeing Ripple, the company, do right now. First we see them change the logo, and we're seeing them separating themselves from XRP more and more. Now, as XRP believers, we know, any of us that really understand XRP, we know that it's a separate thing anyway. I mean, tomorrow Ripple, the company, could go bankrupt and XRP would still be sitting there. It's its own thing. It would be on exchanges. It would be bought and sold, probably mostly sold if Ripple went out of business, but it would be there. But I wanted to make this point. Ripple is... They're doing all of the things that this guy was talking about in the video. They are making moves that would put them further and further away from, even if somebody thought that XRP was initially a security when it came out, being tied closely to Ripple. The things they're doing are moving it further and further away. This right here is the one that happened a couple of days ago, where they announced that David Schwartz, he was the chief cryptographer for Ripple up until now, and now he's being named the CTO. Well, if I'm Brad Garlinghouse, to me, this is a move that I would make, because if I've got the guy, if his title is chief cryptographer, I mean, that ties him a lot more closely to being directly affiliated with XRP than it would be if you're calling him the CTO, just like many other companies have CTOs, but not many have a chief cryptographer. And so there's no question, this is Ripple, the company, making moves to push it further and further away. The other thing, they put this chart out the other day on their Twitter to show all of the differences and outline all the differences between Ripple, the company, and XRP, the digital asset. And I don't know if this screams to me of something that would be one of the boxes that an SEC type government organization would give them and say, you must satisfy these things in order to not be considered a security. And this looks like an obvious step towards making that very clear. Okay, I wanted to go over this article. Now, this is by this article, and the theme of everything that I'm talking to you about is kind of the regulatory landscape, the old traditional landscape, and what I'm trying to relate here is all of we're going as XRP holders. We're as early, I guess I should say, early XRP holders. We're having to go through a period of we're having to go through I would call it a minefield of a lot of things that later investors who aren't going to make as much money as we do will not have to go through. We're having to go through regulation. We're having to go through the naysayers that are traditional finance people who think that oh, Bitcoin and all these digital assets, that's a scam or this or that, because they don't understand it. Warren Buffett's and those kind of guys. We're having to be attacked by banks who are scared that digital assets will replace them, and if they're scared, they should be, because they will. But we're having to go through a lot of things that disruptive new technologies in history have always gone through. And I want to go through these things and then make the point that they better get on board, or we're going to be the ones to win. It's not going to be them. And I'll show you why. Okay, so this is an article by the Weiss Cryptocurrency Ratings. Now, let me say one thing about Weiss right now. Weiss, for many, many years, has been it's a financial newsletter, I believe. And they've been a really great place to go and read things. When they, in the last year, when they decided to go to start covering cryptocurrencies, I personally believe that the people that run Weiss made a decision that they were going to intentionally try to stir up the crypto world. And so what they initially did is they put out these ratings on cryptocurrencies, and they basically bashed pretty much all of them, including XRP. I believe they did it, but I believe it was a calculated move that they knew if their first salvo was to approach it that way, that it would get them all kinds of attention. And I believe they were using the old saying about how no press is bad press. I believe that that's what they were doing. But the truth is, I think that they are all about cryptos. And if they weren't, these guys, that's all they put out now, it seems like, is cryptocurrency ratings and news and articles like this. They do have smart people on their staff. I've read a lot of their things over the years. And so I don't, just because they made me angry and you angry about the XRP ratings a few months back, that does not mean that when they put out an article, if I think that it says things that are honest and true and make sense, that I won't cover it, because they can be smart people with an agenda. And you'll see in the rest of this video, there's a lot of people that are smart people with an agenda. So this article I wanted to cover. Sorry, I'm drinking my coffee this morning. I haven't had my fill yet. But this article right here I wanted to cover for a specific reason. Why regulators will give crypto a green light. And I'm like I did the other day, every once in a while I find something that I just need to read. This isn't long, so don't get upset. But I'm going to read to you. And they're talking about cryptocurrencies and why the regulators will let it all through, and how they'll let it through. He says, it all sounds eerily similar to the early days of the automobile in 19th century Britain. Nearly all roadways were dirt roads, good for horses and carriages, bad for nascent technology of self-propelled vehicles. But instead of recognizing that the old roads were unsuitable, the authorities rushed to concoct laws that treated the new vehicles as unsuitable. The Locomotive Act of 1865 imposed speed limits of 4 miles per hour in the country and 2 miles per hour in the city. It required vehicles hauling wagons to be preceded by a man on foot waving a red flag and blowing a horn, all designed to protect folks from that horrible devilish machine. And all for naught. The laws temporarily halted most research and development for technology in Britain, gave the United States a chance to take the lead, and later forced Britain to reverse the innovation-stifling rules with new legislation like the Motor Car Act of 1903. The British government had no choice, otherwise they'd be left out in the cold. In sum, a new technology was introduced. It was deemed too disruptive to society, promoting regulators to rein it in. None of this stops innovation. Quite to the contrary, what actually happens is that innovation drives regulation, not the other way around. That's kind of what I was referring to with this guy in the SEC. These guys are falling in line, and I know that the Brad Garlinghouses of the world and the Ripple, the company of the world, they're not going to ever say that. They're playing the game until these guys give them what they need. But innovation drives regulation, not the other way around. Don't forget it. Okay, now I want to go. I'm going to make a pretty big pivot here, and part of the reason I'm making this pivot, it's kind of in the same vein. What we're doing with what Ripple's doing and what XRP represents is a changing of the guard, and so we're fighting the fact that we're an innovative technology that's disruptive. We're fighting all of these government regulations, but what we're also fighting is what I'm going to show you now. And that is the old school thinkers and the people who have been in the game and the guys who have been behind the scenes making the money the easy way, the Goldman Sachs boys, all of those people who have traditionally had it easy because they're behind the scenes and they're able to pull strings because of the money they control and the connections they have that the rest of us cannot control or have not been able to control until now. Okay, so what I wanted to show you is, and what we're looking at right now, this, I'm sure all of you are familiar with Jim Cramer. He does the Mad Money show on CNBC, which I never watch. I used to watch it a little bit, but really this video, I'm not going to show you the video, but I'm going to tell you about it and encourage you to go watch it. This video really turned me off to Jim Cramer. This is back in 2007 when the financial crisis was about to, everything was starting to implode. And I remember watching this, and ever since I watched this, I remember thinking, man, the powers that be really did shut him down. The second he started really being honest with his viewers, the powers that be just came in and shut him down. Well, what this was when all of those mortgage-backed securities started to, back in the financial crisis, all of Cramer's buddies who were in investment banking and at all the funds and the Goldman Sachs and all those places, this is where you really got a true insight into what really drives Jim Cramer and CNBC and all these financial powers that be. In this video, Cramer basically has a meltdown and starts attacking Bernanke and telling him that he needs to interfere, and basically what he's so upset about is all of his friends are contacting him from these places saying, the ship's going down, we're all going down, why aren't you saying things to help us? And these are the same guys that eventually would get bailed out. These are the guys that Bernanke would come in and help save. And Cramer is instead of telling his viewers, actually this is like one of the first flashes of him trying to tell the truth, but he's telling it for the wrong reasons. He's coming out and saying the world's coming to an end, but he's doing it to save his buddies, instead of doing it for the benefit of his viewers, in my opinion. So anyway, in this video, he comes out and he calls for Bernanke, why aren't you interfering? And he's going crazy on here. And he mentions that his friends of 25 years are calling him and all this. And then at some point, there's a quote, and it says, "Will someone come on TV and tell the truth about how bad it is?" That's what he said. So in other words, he hasn't been telling the truth all along, but this one time he's going to tell the truth to the audience. And we find out that he's talking to his buddies behind the scenes that are with all these Wall Street firms, or who all of his sources are. And now all of a sudden he's having a meltdown because they're going to go out of business because they made bad bets. Well, that gave me it gave me a really bad taste in my mouth when I saw that. And then a few years later, they have like a retrospective, and they do. I pieced together. There's two videos here. It looks like it's from the same interview, but I think it was just him on the floor of the stock exchange, and two different people got a hold of him. But what I wanted to tell you, this is Cramer after that meltdown where he actually had a flash of telling the truth. These are recap where he's looking back and he's having he's telling about his regrets. And I wanted to tell you just a few things that he said. The first thing he said was how humiliating it was for him in hindsight that he got on there and started ranting about all this. The second thing he said is that he was soundly and roundly criticized. And then this is a quote. He says after looking back on it, he says, this is a quote from him. Is it worth it to try to expose things or tell the truth to power? That's what he says. Now here's a guy who is advising people what to buy, the average public out there, what to buy every night on TV. And his reflection of that moment is it worth it to try to expose things or to tell the truth to power? In other words, should I just keep towing the line the way CNBC tells me to? All right. He also in this, and you should go and watch these yourself. It's really interesting. He said that his friends from his Goldman Sachs days were now at the time that his meltdown on TV happened. His friends from his Goldman Sachs days were running the firms and the trading desks, and that's why he got so upset, is because they're calling him all upset. Now I'm going to give you another quote from his looking back. I've been on Wall Street for 35 years, and I have accumulated a lot of friends, and they are my sources. A lot of them in 2007 realized that their world was coming to an end, and that's what precipitated that. And so that's an amazing thing for him to be talking about this. I'm sorry, I keep on getting, got something in my throat here. He said, and then he went on to say that when he came out and he had the rant, he said, it was poorly received by the media, my colleagues, and by the Fed. And then he says, was it, this is a quote as well. He says, was it worth it? And he said, career-wise, no. I embarrassed my kids. And then let's go on to this diamond in the rough. This does not have to do with that meltdown, but it has everything to do with the way that these Wall Street guys have played the game for the last, over 50 to 100 years, okay? It's the way the Warren Buffetts play the game now. It's the way all of these guys play the game, and they've been able to play the game. And that's what the point I'm making is that this behind the scenes and the connections and what they do and what I'm fixing to tell you that Cramer actually admitted to in this video clip, those things that go on behind the scenes, digital assets and XRP, they represent a loss of control of that. They represent these guys not being able to play the games they've always been able to play, because guess who was first to the party? The average Joes, the people that they look down on. We were the ones that were here first. And they can't stand that because they know that it stops them from being able to play the games that they've always played. Or they can play them still in the short run, but not for long. Okay, so this is Jon Stewart. Now, after the financial crisis, Jon Stewart, he kind of went on a rant of his own against CNBC and all these financial companies that knew what these mortgage companies had been doing, and they were all pushing all of this all the way to the end of the line, including the ratings agencies, the media outlets. they all knew how crazy these mortgages that were crazy mortgages that should never have been written, that were written without any documentation. They knew all of them were in on this from the very beginning, and they helped push it and everything. But here's a quote. John Stewart, in this video, he starts talking to Jim Cramer about how he says, yeah, you used to run a hedge fund, didn't you? And then he pulls up a video of Jim Cramer in this, where, let's see if I can pull it back. Here we go. I'm not going to play the video, but I'm going to read you Jim Cramer's quotes. John Stewart pulls a video from Jim Cramer's past where he's being interviewed by someone. And the quote by Jim Cramer, this is when he was running a hedge fund. He's talking to this guy and he says, and I quote, "A lot of times when I short at my hedge fund, when I needed it down, I would create a level of activity beforehand that would drive the futures. It's a very quick way to make money." And then he goes on to say it's not illegal. In other words, it's technically not illegal, but it's about as shady as it can be. So he's bragging that how when he was running a hedge fund, that he would create a short position, and then he would, behind the scenes, they would do things to manipulate the market, basically. The same way that you're seeing things being manipulated right now in the short run in the digital asset market. They're playing the same kind of games. Okay, I hope that you're kind of getting a picture of what I'm getting at with all this. We've been fighting an uphill battle, and what's going to happen is when we finally break through the brick wall of corruption and regulation and all of this, and these people finally get comfortable with what is really the only true and honest thing, which is digital assets. How can it be more true and honest than having a digital asset that's created in a finite supply where no more can ever be made, and our money and the value of it is protected by nobody being able to print it into oblivion? Okay, so the last piece, or one of the final pieces of this puzzle, is this article I saw yesterday. And it's about how Binance is opening an exchange. Binance Exchange backs first ever decentralized bank in Malta. And so this, when I saw this, I'm like, so it begins. Now just imagine if you're a bank, a traditional bank, and I experienced this just a week or so ago when you go into wire money, and I told you guys about it. But imagine if you're a traditional bank and you make your money, let's say you're making $30 per wire that you do, which is about what they make. And all of a sudden you see that a bank is being opened where the customers can go in, and all of a sudden these customers have the power. They're able to transfer their assets from here to there, and they don't need you to sit down with them anymore and take their $30 for you just being this person that can fill out a piece of paper. The middleman's gone. This right here, when this begins to happen and these dominoes begin to fall, it is over. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have banks to walk into, but it does mean that if the banks refuse to become decentralized banks like this, that they will die. If they refuse to, and I think that their first reaction was just to refuse, but that's all changing. It's fixed. All we needed was to start to see a few of these banks open up, and once that happens, it's what I'm fixing to tell you right now. I believe that we are in a Moneyball moment. I believe that Ripple XRP is playing Moneyball games, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I mean by that. I am very big into baseball with both of my sons, and so Moneyball is a great movie. If you've not seen Moneyball, watch it today if you're able to. But I'll just give you a brief on what Moneyball is about. Traditionally, in baseball, in Major League Baseball, the teams would always draft, and basically they would be drafting for it would become a common thing that if the rock star baseball players that were known to be rock stars were, they would be multi-million-dollar baseball players. And once they received that label, therefore they were, and all of the teams would immediately try to spend all of this money to have multi-million-dollar baseball players. Well, what Moneyball is about is back in the I think it was the late '90s into the early 2000s. Brad Pitt in this movie plays Billy Beane, who's the general manager of the A's, and the A's are a low-budget Major League Baseball team. They were trying to compete with, $30 or $40 million. They're trying to compete with teams like the New York Yankees that had budgets that were over $100 million. And so Billy Beane hired a guy to be his assistant manager, and the guy's name was Peter Brand, okay? And Peter Brand comes in and he says, "Look," Peter Brand was a economist. He had majored in economy, not in economy, but he had majored in economics from Yale. He was from Yale, but he was in the movie, at least. I'm not sure if this is how it really was. He was working for the Cleveland Indians, and then Brad Pitt's character, Billy Beane, hired him away from the Indians. And the guy comes in, and they basically sit down all of their scouts, and they say, we can't compete with the New York Yankees of the world, paying for millions of dollars per player. And so what we're going to do, baseball, if you really look at it from a statistics point of view, we're going to put players on our team that we're going to get players that we think we can buy for cheap. And we're going to do it by studying the statistics and who actually gets on base and has the higher on base percentages. Instead of trying to assume some guy's really good, if you look behind the numbers, you might pay $3 million for that rock star, and there may be a guy that you can pick up for $250,000 a year who has a better on base percentage than the baseball rock star, like a Dave Justice, or at the time Dave Justice was not a rock star. Actually, that's a bad example. But they had like the Giambi guy. He was like known as being a multi-million-dollar baseball player. So what the A's went out and did is they created an entire team of what other people in the league and a lot of the scouts on the A's team, the old school scouts, thought was a subpar team, but they were actually putting together players who, when you looked at the numbers, they had better numbers on base percentage than a lot of the guys who were demanding millions of dollars. Well, what happened in this is, and I'm going to get around to my point and how this relates to cryptocurrency in just one second, but how this relates is the old school scouts in the A's organization got really angry. And there's a scene where Billy Beane, the general manager that's played by Brad Pitt, is in the hallway and he's talking to one of the old school scouts, and the guy's about to quit. And he said, and they have this dialogue, and I'm going to read it to you because this is exactly where Ripple XRP is right now, and this is what's going on. Okay, this is the scout talking. He's talking about Peter Brand. The scout's name was Grady Fuson. Billy, you got a kid in there that's got a degree in economics from Yale. You got a scout here with 29 years of baseball experience. You're listening to the wrong one. Now, there are intangibles that only baseball people understand. You're discarding what scouts have done for 150 years, even yourself. Billy Beane, adapt or die. And that's what's happening to the finance world right now. If they don't adapt, they're going to die. And Ripple XRP is going to change the world. And I'm going to sum it up by telling you one thing. We are the rebels of finance, and XRP will win. Hold. Thanks for watching. I am the digital asset investor. I am not an investment advisor. I want y'all to please subscribe and hit the like button. Next week, I wanted to tell you guys, I was asked by DM Logic, many of you may watch him. I was asked by DM Logic if I would do an interview with him, and I hope he's not mad at me for telling you guys this, but I am going to do an interview, a voice interview. This might sound strange to a lot of you, but this YouTube thing for me kind of happened by accident. I never thought that my YouTube channel would catch on the way it is. So I am still trying to decide if and whether I will ever show my face on here. Even if I don't show my face, you guys will. I will do live streams. I may be showing you my screen. I haven't decided that yet, but for the time being, I told DM Logic that I will do the interview, but I'm going to do it in such a way that it's just a voice interview. So I hope you guys are okay with that. Also, I appreciate everybody who's getting the Ledger Nano S's. I have the link in my description. I say this at the end of every video. You can go get, it's the only safe way to hold your digital assets. And I provide a link to Ledger, the company, in the description of every one of my videos. You can click and go straight there. It's the only truly safe way to hold your digital assets, and it's the only way that you're really going to sleep good holding them, especially if you have a lot of it. Also, you can get a 20% discount in my description of and a link to to get cryptocurrency merchandise as well. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope y'all have a good day.